So who here used Big Neon to get into this event today? Okay, this guy designed it. So yeah, so we care deeply about design. We think one of the big challenges in our space is user experience. So we're really, really excited to have Karim here with us from the cold north.
Yes, Ottawa.
All right, everyone give Karim a round of applause.
Thanks, Naveen, for the intro. My name is Karim Balaa. I'm a product designer at Tari Labs. This talk's going to be about design systems, what they are, why they're potentially great for helping you scale your products and improving your process, and hopefully some helpful tips to help you get started or improve on the existing design system that you have, or even just thinking about them in general. So pretty much every digital product faces an important challenge when it begins to scale, which is how do we continue to ship high-quality products and features? In other words, how do we continue to scale? How do we do that at a fast and healthy pace? And how do we carry a consistent user experience across all these screens? Potentially hundreds of screens, hundreds of components and features and interactions. Also can carry over to other platforms such as a microsite, an intranet, an extranet. Pretty much our products these days are scaling across different platforms, and internally they're pretty deep with a lot of components. And the question is, how do we carry a consistent user experience across all these platforms? And how do we manage this giant inventory of UI elements? How do we leverage them to use it across these entire platforms? And we need a system to kind of take care of all that. That's pretty much what design systems are about. They're meant to help you create the things you want to create consistently and efficiently. Obviously, they've been around for a long time. Everyone knows that if you have a system in place, it'll help you be more efficient, more productive, and so on. But they're really on the rise these days, especially like products are moving so fast, and we need a way to scale at that speed from a design perspective. We need a way to address certain requests pretty quickly. At some points, go from like brainstorming ideas to high-fidelity mockups pretty quickly. So, and we need to keep a certain level of quality as well as we're doing that. So essentially, this is what the design systems are. They're a collection of a few things. They're a collection of styles, which is your living, breathing style guide. It's going to have things like your brand colors, your typography, iconography, form elements, how they're styled, certain attributes like drop shadows, border radiuses, even things with interaction, certain easing, how do certain cards come on screen. So pretty much all the styles that style your components, which brings us to components. These are all the reusable components that were used across our products in many ways. So these could be nested components. They could be small components. When put together, they form a bigger feature or a bigger element of the screen. And the idea is that we want to have these in a place where we can easily use them and easily put them into our mockups and into our code. You also want a collection of rules. These could be rules in terms of how to use this design system. You might have rules in pertaining to a specific components in terms of how to use them, how to not use them, specific styles. So pretty much any kind of rule that's going to help you use your design system more efficiently. And ideally, you want to have all these on a reference website, a website that anyone in the organization can access at any time, which is going to provide just more transparency overall into our process, what we have in terms of our UI inventory. Yeah. So just a couple of examples of design systems that are out there that have made a big impact. We're probably all familiar of Material Design by Google. This is a demo that they have on material.io. But like this is probably one of the more popular ones, and I don't think any of us are building a design system this crazy, but it's cool for us to kind of see and learn from. Like they created patterns that are being used across many different products, and it's funny because like, Google was never really known for a company that was good at design. They had a lot of products all over the place, and really when they rolled out Material Design in 2013, 2014, I think, it really helped them unify kind of their visual language, and just they created patterns that are being used across the board in a bunch of their products, which is why we kind of see similar navigation, similar button treatments from a Gmail to Google Drive to YouTube and so on. Yeah, as well as opening it up for all of us. Like I think the examples we see here, for the most part, they're from third-party apps that have leveraged Google Design, Google Material Design to kind of style things their own way, and but leverage Google's design thinking and their patterns and their components. And yeah, it's pretty awesome. Another just quick example, which is much different, is Audi's design system. So same thing, this is from Audi's design system's website, just a quick demo video, but obviously much different than Google. But it's interesting to see how their design system helped Audi unify their experience from web, mobile, even a watch interface they show in a bit. And from what I read as well, in terms of some of their vehicle UI has these components as well. It's clear to see like how much effort and care was put into every component, and they thought about how it scales, how it looks in different mediums, how it looks in different situations, how images crop, and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, and if you do Google just Audi design system, this is available for all of us to kind of see and learn from. Like they update their UI components there, and whenever there is an update, they let us know what got updated. So it's, even though it's not an open source project, but it's still kind of cool to show the world kind of what they have in terms of their UI inventory. I'm sure it's also for their partners and them internally. You can also download the sketch file if you're a designer. You can check out their symbols, their components, how they use them. It's pretty cool. Like for example, for them, it's just instead of designing a new component, they just click 2 clicks and they drop in certain components at full fidelity, which I'm sure speeds up their process a lot. If you're interested in seeing some more, just check out designsystemrepo.com. There's like over 70 examples, big companies and small companies, and some open source design systems. It's pretty cool. They got stuff from IBM, Salesforce, Apple. They all have really in-depth design systems that are pretty cool. So what are the benefits of having a good design system? There's a bunch. You should ultimately see an improved and more consistent UI and UX. Because we're using patterns and components that we've done to perfection, and we've tested and so on, we're using them consistently across the board, it's going to help overall create a better user experience, and just really create something that's more trustworthy and easier to use, which is always a good thing. Faster and more efficient production, of course. The idea is to avoid having to do those redundant tasks, but the idea is that the design system is going to do all that boring stuff for us, and of course we've done it ourselves initially, and then we tested it and so on, and now again we can go from just quick ideas and brainstorming sessions to full high fidelity mockups. Better collaboration between design and engineering. Instead of like designers working on mock-ups, handing them over, and then they come back and things are maybe things have changed, we both go our separate ways, and then we come back and revisit it. The idea is that we can still do that to some extent, but at a certain point, when it's time, when we've identified the components that we need, we design and build these together. We check them off in terms of where they go. They might go on your mobile app versus desktop app, and maybe a watch interface or whatever the case may be. But we design and we test these together. We make sure they scale properly. We test them with long titles, short titles, error messages, pretty much all kinds of scenarios we think they're going to be in, and we build those components together, which in return is going to be overall better collaboration for the production team. And also eliminate knowledge silos. I think it's super important that we're very transparent. All our UI elements are out there for all of us to check out and see and use. Instead of just a handful of people knowing what we have in terms of our UI elements, it's pretty much out there for all of us to know, to see kind of why we made certain decisions. So overall, it just creates more transparency when this design system is out there and everyone can access it. Better onboarding for new experience. It acts as an excellent resource really for new employees to see kind of why we made certain decisions, why we have these components, and how to use them for new employees and fully for everyone in the organization. So like overall pros, like what a design system is solving, it's really pushing us towards a better user experience for end users and internally in the team. We're saving time on production. We're building high fidelity stuff a lot faster. Better collaboration internally, more transparency in terms of our UI inventory, and better onboarding. Drawbacks are, it could be a decent amount of work to get a design system to a place where it's super useful. You can start by building the MVP of components and then expanding on there, but to get to a place where your design system can take care of all your components and all your styles, it's a good amount of work, so it's definitely a drawback. And of course, it goes without saying, but not all projects need a design system. Like we start to realize we need one when we realize our product maybe is internally getting a little bit messy. The code and design is becoming hard to manage from all our screens and all our components. And maybe at that point, it's good to take 2 steps back and realize if we can systemize certain things. Yeah. So how do you get started? Which is probably the hardest part, because it seems very daunting at first, but doing a UI inventory, looking at your product from a bird's eye view and figuring out pretty much all the components that are being used consistently across the board. If there's one-offs, that's cool, but if there's a components being used across the board multiple times, same with styles and transitions, I think it's good to take note of that so we can put that in the system and design it carefully and make sure it scales properly. This way in the future we can just drop it in a lot faster. And yeah, I think before kind of going forward too much, we need to get buy-in from the leadership team and the production team. Leadership team, like we'd want to allocate a certain amount of time to get this design system off the ground, to allocate a couple of weeks to do this audit and figure out kind of what we need in terms of our components, what we want from this design system, what do we want it to help us with. So getting buy-in from a couple of people from the leadership team as well as from the internal team to be on board in terms of kind of shifting the way we tackle new tasks. So it's more about leveraging this design system in the future instead of tackling tasks from scratch. So I think it's just a bit of a learning curve there in terms of changing the way we tackle tasks and making sure everyone's bought into that concept. Also forming a design systems team. This can start with just 1 or 2 people, but eventually having 4 or 5 people to kind of own this project. They're the ones that are going to be marking off the requirements for every component. Where is it going to go? How is it going to look on this platform versus this platform? How does it scale? And they're also the ones that are going to be updating the reference website, which is going to need like certain updates to tell us when there's something new and how to use certain things. And if there's any requests, they'll be the ones that will get it. If someone notices that we need a certain component for something, the idea is that it's pretty transparent. Anyone can pitch in these ideas. And designing and building the components, obviously this is the one that's going to be the most time consuming between designers and engineers building this together. But starting with the MVP of components, because this is a pretty daunting task, especially if you have a product that's hundreds of screens deep, figuring out the components that would save you a lot of time. So having those designed and done to perfection, and then starting from those, using them, see if it's helping you, and then if it is, you can make that scale. And also starting a reference website. I think once the organization sees a reference website, it makes a design system real. They end up going there to check it out in terms of seeing what's new. Yeah, it just makes the whole project real and super important. Just a couple of things. I think it's important to not make bad decisions because that's just how the design system is. It's important to realize that you can break out of the design system. Don't feel trapped in there. If you feel like you need to solve something and being in the design system is not working, I need to break out to try something new, that's totally cool. If you need to do a one-off solution, that's cool. Or if you need to do something and then later on look back at it and see if it could have been solved with a design system, that's always good. Just the idea is not to feel trapped in there. And just one more thing is that design systems are always a work in progress. I think it's going to evolve as your company evolves, as you add new features. You might go through a rebrand, you might go through, whatever the case may be, and it's going to be a work in progress. But at a certain point, it's going to be super useful, and I think it's worth it. That's all I got. Thank you.